Hey there friends, how's it going? This is David Potts with Song Notes, and I'm pumped today to be showing you the needle and the damage done. This is one a lot of you have requested over on my Patreon page, so thanks for sending those requests in. Here is the sheet music I made for this one. It's 3 pages. It's made with absolute love and care. First page gives you all the lyrics and chords, everything you need to know, that intro tab as well to play the full song. Pages 2 and 3, I'll talk about the strumming, talk about the riff, I'll show you a step-by-step way to learning it, talk about what you need to know for the verse, and adding that cool E fill he does at the end of every verse he sings. So lots of good stuff. I also have a members only video if you want to hear me play it from beginning to end. Thanks to all of you who are supporting me over on my Patreon page. I hope you find the discount on the sheet music helpful as well as all my instructional PDFs. Your membership is incredibly appreciated. So let's get into it. I'll see you all on the other side. Let's go. All right, y'all, so let's kick this one off by quickly looking at the structure of the song because it's going to help you understand why I'm going to teach you the riff first and how you're going to use the chords and the chord shapes you use in the riff and the verses and everything. So check this out, right? Page 1 of my sheet music, this riff takes up 8 measures at the very beginning of the song. And what's going to happen is when you get into the verse, when Neil Young starts singing, it's following the same chord progression that's used in that intro riff. And he's also going to play the intro riff between the 3rd and 4th verse and then play the first half of the riff at the very end. So the main point of me showing you this is you learn the chords that are used in this riff once and you learn the actual full riff and you basically know 95% of the song. There's a few little gotchas. One of them is this little filler riff that happens after the E chord. He only plays this when he's singing. I'll teach you that later down the road. I'll also show you how to strum the song if you don't want to play that complicated Neil Young riff during the whole entire song, okay? But I'm just giving you the lay of the land here, and let's dive on into this riff and get you going with this. Now, to teach you this, I want to start off by quickly just looking at the chord shapes it uses, because again, you need these chord shapes to actually play the riff with your left hand, and then when you get to strumming the riff, or strumming the sequence actually, the chord progression to play the entire song, you're going to need these same chord shapes, so you might as well learn them first. At a glance, they look like this. So it's going to be 8 measures again. We're going to start with the regular D chord, and then the next 3 measures are going to be like a walk down in the bass note, right? A D over C, a G over B, and then a G over B flat. I've seen folks call this a G minor over B flat. Naming aside, this is what the chord looks like, okay? So again, starting at the top, you have your regular D. To go to the next chord, all you're going to do is take off your middle finger and move it from the thinnest string to the 3rd fret of the 5th string. Okay, so we go from this to this, okay? And then for the next one, the G over B, we're effectively going to take off our middle finger and then move our index finger to the 2nd fret of the 5th string, okay? And notice how in this 2nd, 3rd, and 4th chord, the high E string is open. And also notice that your left ring finger is staying still. It's actually staying still for the D chord as well, right? The D over C, the G over B, and then the G over B flat. Okay, this finger is staying still the entire time. It makes it nice and sort of straightforward. Now, a couple things to note here. The G over B and the G over B flat, the only thing that's different is this note right here with your index finger. It's going from the 2nd fret to the 1st fret. Now, I'm playing this on my travel size guitar. It's a little bit smaller than a full size. And I just want to say that this stretch of this chord is the most tricky one in the entire song, right? It's very awkward. Give it some time. Make sure you're warmed up too. When you play this song, play something else for a little bit. Get your hands moving. Get your left hand used to changing some chord shapes. Because if you just try to play this song cold, going into this chord is going to be really tough. If you're really having trouble, you can use your index finger and your pinky. Okay, but you got to get that one. So that's the first 4 chords. Okay, now the next 4 measures, we have a C major chord, nice and straightforward there, and then we have an F. Now during the riff, you're actually going to have your hand, if anything, in this sort of like 3-string version of the F. You're not going to be doing this full barred version of the F. You can do that if you want when you're strumming, but just don't be scared of the F chord is my main point. When we get to strumming, you can do an F over C or just something very simple if you want, right? And then finally, we have our E sus4 and our regular E. The sus4 is just basically adding our pinky right here on the 3rd string, 2nd fret, okay? Okay, so those are the chord shapes. We're going to have to go through the chords, 8 measures in this order for the entire song, so make sure you know these chord shapes because everything else I'm about to show you is predicated on that sort of fact. Now, This is important if you want to play the riff, and also if you want to strum at all like Neil Young. This is an important concept of basically doing this strumming where you're kind of doing a constant down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. You know, he doesn't really, he's not one for strumming patterns usually because he's kind of always strumming in a lot of his songs, and he adds the nuance through the strings he's putting accent on, the strings he's not strumming some of the times, right? So I'm going to talk about that, but basically it's a down, up, 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 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and that's kind of what your right hand has to do. But even furthermore, it's going to have to sort of do this sort of bass note. See how I was doing basically a bass note, up strum, bass note, up strum, right? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and you want to get comfortable with this. This is going to basically set you up for the skills you need for the riff. And these first 4 chords are really where you're going to want to practice it a lot. So that's why I put this little this figure together in my sheet music there. It's going to get you comfortable with playing a bass note, a single bass note on the down strum, and then sort of doing a brushy up strum on the thinnest 2 or 3 strings on your and count, right? So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. This doesn't sound musical yet, but this is basically like the Karate Kid, wax on, wax off. Like, you have to get comfortable with this motion if you want to sort of get comfortable with this riff, in my opinion. Now, the next thing we're going to do is take what I just showed you, and then we're just basically going to not play some of the strings on some of the up strums. And just by doing that, it turns this, okay, into this. Okay, so basically that last thing I just played, it's the same concept. Bass up, down, up, bass 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 up. When I say bass, I mean the bass string, maybe the bass 2 strings of whatever chord you're playing, and then you're gonna brush the thinnest couple strings. Now here's how to do this. Check this out. This is the first 4 measures of the riff. Couple things. Let's start with this D measure. Okay, so it starts off with what I just showed you. On the down strums, it's all the sort of D bass note. Okay, but on the up strums, we're not going to just stay in this D shape the whole time. We're going to do a couple things. One is on our second up strum, we're going to take our middle finger off the high E string, right? That's the first 4 plucks. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And then on the 3rd and 4th up strum, we're only going to play the 2nd and 3rd strings. We're going to skip the 1st string. So this is where that sort of that up strum precision comes in. And it actually is something you're going to need to do for the rest of the riff. Is on your up strums, you kind of want this 2nd string, this B string, to be the string where your sort of pick is hitting. You're occasionally going to go up to the thinnest string, but that's the exception and not the rule. So let's see what we mean here. If we go to this D over C, what's going to happen is you're going to change your left-hand chord shape to D over C, right? Then you're going to do the same sort of thing I showed you before. But on the 1st, 3rd, and 4th up strum, we're not going to play the thinnest string, right? So, right? See what I'm doing there? Basically, 5th string, down strum, and then 2nd and 3rd string, up strum, bass note again. Then you get the thinnest 3 strings. You get the thinnest string on that 2nd up strum, and then you do 2 more up strums of just the 2nd and 3rd string. So let me do the first 2 measures now. Okay, now check this out. The next 2 measures, the G over B and the G over B flat, we're going to follow that same pattern where the circle, the melody note there, is going to go from the 2nd string on the 1st up strum to the 1st string on the 2nd up strum, and then we're going to go back to the 2nd string on the 2nd and 3rd up strum. I'm sorry, 3rd and 4th up strum. Lots of counting here, but basically, if I just did the up strums, Basically, they're going to be similar. It's the bass note which is adding the additional flavor. Okay, the final note is on the G over B flat. On the very last up strum, we're actually going to take our hand off of the chord, and you just play open second and third string. That's going to make it easier when you switch chords to the C. You're basically leaving the party early so that you can get in place for the C. Now, again, this thing, if this is giving you trouble, go back to that first exercise I showed you. It's not the most glamorous, flashy, sexy thing, but it's going to set you up with the muscle memory you need over here, so that when you do have to basically take that finger off the D chord, okay, it's going to set you up for success there. So that's the sort of way I recommend learning the first half of the main verse riff, or the main intro riff. Now let's look at the second half of the riff here. So now you see the tab for the entire riff, right? So you have what I just showed you, but here's another way to look at it. If you look at this first half, I've removed all those sort of filler notes in the D chord, right? Because we were going, on my up strums, I'm getting 2 or 3 strings at a time. But you could just play it like this, where you only get the melody notes with your up strum. That would sound like this. Okay, that's the sort of clean way to do it, but you could play the same thing and follow the previous tab I have, or just add a more full strums, but you want the thinnest, the highest in pitch note you play to be the melody notes. Don't play the thinnest string if the melody note is on the B string. You understand? So that's basically 2 different ways to play the first half of the intro riff. One is the clean way, right? Do it again here. And then this is the full way. Same exact left-hand chord used in both. Okay, I have the tabs for both of these in my sheet music here, so it can help you out. But this is a tricky song, and this is the way I would, in writing this sheet music up, I wrote this and rewrote it and edited it a bunch of times, trying to get the explanation as good as I could get it. This is what makes the most sense to me. I hope it helps for you. Now, let's go to the second half of the riff here, because in a way, things change quite a bit here, but in a way it's also similar. So here the melody notes are not happening with the up strums. They're happening with the down strums. That's why I've circled them with the blue circle here instead of the yellow one. And the idea here is our up strums are going to be on that second string, just consistent, right? For our C, we're just always going to pluck the first fret of the B string. You can include the open high E string if you want, but that's not the main thing we're trying to get. Let's look at the melody note though, right? If we just played the blue circled notes, okay, that was for the C. I basically did a 5th fret, 5th string, 3rd fret, right? Just like on a regular C, your bass note. The second melody note is open to 2nd fret on the 4th string. Okay, so then we're going to go to 3rd string open, then hammer onto 2nd fret on the 3rd string, then do 3rd fret on the 3rd string, then 2nd fret on the 3rd string, then open 3rd string, then 3rd fret on the 4th string. If you play that smoothly. I recommend doing this a bunch of times. Get comfortable with it. Memorize these notes. I forgot the hammer on that time. That's for the C and for the F measure. And then for the E measure, we're basically going to put our hand in the E sus4 position, and then the bass notes only, the melody notes would be, that's for the E sus4. Then you're just going to lift off that sus4 note and do the same strings. But on the last string, instead of going to the low open E string, we're going to do the open 5th string. And again, I think this is just setting things up to go back to the D to start things over, right? Ending on that A, that open 5th string A, it's like the dominant, getting ready to go home to the tonic, the D, okay? Don't worry about that if you don't understand the theory. Now, I taught you these notes. Now, what about the upstrums? The upstrums are important here to give it its character. So the idea here is you want to okay, so basically I was adding in the upstrums just on the 1st fret of the B string. Now, if it's tricky for you just to do the 2nd string when you're doing your upstrums, you can actually add the open high E string to all your upstrums on this entire 2nd half of the riff. It actually makes it easier in a way because you can just kind of do brushy upstrums on the thinnest 2 strings. That's going to sound like this. Okay, I'll leave that up to you. But basically, this is a tricky one. You really have to be able to shift that feeling from the 1st half, where the melody notes are on the upstrums, to the 2nd half. Okay, that's basically what you're going to need for the entire intro riff. And I really implore you, practice if you experiment. Does the clean version make it easier for you? Whoops. Or a little bit of a mistake there. Or does the more full version make sense for you? That would be like this. Okay? Experiment with both, because one of them might be the key to success for you for getting comfortable with this. It's a tricky thing to get. It's a lot about feel. I find that if I mess up, I have to start at the beginning to kind of get that groove going. But that's basically how you're going to play the intro riff to this song. All right, y'all, so let's look at how to play the verses of this song, where you might want to dial back the riff a little bit. But like I said at the beginning, you're going to be using the same chords. So all the chords I showed you earlier on are going to apply here. So on page 3 of my sheet music, I have the progression written out, and I also have it typed up in tab form like this. I would say, at the very least, you could just play, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, D over C, D, 4, G over B, and G over B flat, then C, 2, 3, 4, F, 2, 3, 4, E sus4, and E, right? You could strum it as simple as you want, just using this as your foundation. I do think, though, getting the bass note, like these aren't really chords you want to sort of strum, you know, do like a full strum on. You're going to miss the sort of nuance, and it's really that descending bass note you want to get in those first 4 measures especially. So at the very least, you know, you could just do, you know, a bass down, 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 right? This is on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. That's like the simplest way to do it, right? Now, Neil Young effectively is kind of just always doing the 8th note down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and but again, he's sort of omitting certain strings, he's giving accent to other strings, and he's using bass notes wisely to sort of give the overall effect. So one way you could strum it like him is you basically do the bass note on the 1 count, then you just do light down, up, down, up, down, up the rest of the time, right? So now baby, baby, can I have some more? Ooh, the damage done. Okay, it could be as simple as that, right? You could do something simpler though, where you could do a bass down, bass up, down, a bass down, bass up, down, up. This isn't necessarily meant to sound like Neil Young. Right? Bass down, bass up, down, a 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 bass down, bass up, down. All right, so there's a few strumming options you have there for playing the song. Again, all 4 of the verses use the same progression. All right, and the last thing I want to teach you all here is this E ending riff. You hear this at the very end of each verse that Neil Young sings. After the E, basically during that E measure, he's going to use this riff. And this riff is super similar to what you hear in the main intro riff of the song. You know how in the intro we're going from the E sus4? Okay, I showed you that already. With the E sus4, we're sort of walking down the bass line from the 3rd string, 4th string, 5th string, 6th string, 3rd string, 4th string, 5th string, 5th string. Here what we're going to do is we're going to start on the same note, okay, the same 1st fret of the 3rd string, down strum on it, and then we're also going to keep those up strums. But what we want to do is instead of walking it down, what we're going to do is start on the same note, but okay, so G string 1st fret, down strum, up pluck, hammer on from 0 to 2 on the 5th string, up strum, slide from 2 to 4 on the 4th string, up strum, back to 2 on the 4th string, up strum. When you do it slow, it sounds very disjointed, but basically, okay? One more time. The practical tip here is when you slide up, really you want to lean this ring finger into the 3rd string. You don't want this 3rd string to ring out because inevitably to slide up, you have to take your hand off of the E major shape. And when you do that, the 3rd string open is a G. And G in the E scale is a minor 3rd. So if you are playing this, you slide up and you do an up strum that catches that open 3rd string, it's going to sound minor and it's going to change the whole tonality in a way you don't want. So that's why I lean this in. So basically, even if you up strum and you get the 3rd string, it's not going to make a noise because it's muted. Okay, so. When you go back down to the last note, 2nd fret of the 4th string, put your hand back in the E major position. So let me play through, let me strum the whole 8 measure progression. I'm not going to do any of the intro riff, but on this last measure, I'm going to do, okay, and you'll hear what it sounds like. Okay, so D. D over C, G over B, G over B flat, and the C, F, E sus4, E sus4, so that's how you're going to do that, and then you can really sound like Neil. So I have a full playthrough of this song with all the lyrics and the chords and everything in a separate, it's a members only video. You can find it on my website, playsongnotes.com. Thanks to all of you who are supporting me over there. You get discounts on my sheet music if you're not a member, so you should consider joining. If you like me, you like my lessons, it really helps me out. You get a discount on all my sheet music, and then all my instructional PDFs, the ones that don't teach songs but teach you essential guitar techniques, those are all available to you when you become a member. And it's monthly or annual. You can cancel anytime, very fairly priced, and it helps me out. I mean, it I put hours into these lessons every week for years. And if you want to support me, you want these to keep going, please consider becoming a member. Really appreciate it. So go check out that playthrough. You can hear how it all sounds. And with that said, I'm going to take off, y'all. Check out my other Neil Young lessons that I've made. I have a bunch of other song sheets and video tutorials for his stuff. He's one of my absolute favorites, and I love this song. So thanks very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.